Welcome to Penn State Dickinson Law's Profiles in Leadership series. My name is Darrell Lim. I serve as the H. Leddy Montauk Junior Chair and Associate Dean for Research and Innovation at the Law School. This series offers an opportunity to glean insights from top leaders in their fields. In each episode, we invite these leaders to reflect on their journeys and share skills, core values, and qualities that make them the leaders they are today. We're very pleased to welcome for this episode Jing, who is the founder of Jing Law Firm. He has more than 20 years experience in handling IP litigation, antitrust, policy advocacy, and compliance matters. He started his legal career as a patent attorney in Silicon Valley and spent about 9 years in a major international law firm before developing his private practice in China. He successfully guided clients on many complex China legal matters, including FRAND rate setting for standard essential patents, injunctive relief in chemical patent litigations, live sports broadcasts, bad faith trademark litigations, major licensing transactions in semiconductor and wireless communications. Major industrial associations often consult with him on China legal and policy matters. He's passionate about making policy changes and contributing to the legal environment in China. He was the key consultant conducting a US-China intellectual property dialogue where top US and China experts convene and deliver roadmap documents for China intellectual property reforms. He also leads the policy programs and at many institutions and has been actively contributing his leadership insights in education and in the legal profession. Welcome, Jing.
Thank you, Darrell. Thank you for including me in this Profiles of Leadership series. Really, really my honor to be here.
Oh, we're very pleased to have you. And I would flag for our viewers that Jing has actually done an earlier interview, which we're going to put in the description, where he talks about some of the themes that we'll be discussing today, but we're going to go in depth and build on some of these discussions. So let's start with your background. And you have an early exposure to Western civilization, Western thoughts, and Western ideas, just based on the part of China that you were born and you grew up in. Can you talk a little bit about that?
Well, that's almost like 30 years ago. I think when I reflect, right, the way I got into the IP career really has a lot to do with the larger backgrounds in terms of like the U.S.-China, the trade negotiation, and that happens about early 1990s. China made a decision to train our own China IP lawyers after China signed the trade deal with the US. And so I was very lucky to be the first generation of China IP law students and the first generation of IP lawyers back then. So I went to Peking University. Initially, I was having a major in physics and then got an opportunity to taking on this double major in IP and physics. That's a 1994 to 1997. So I finished my first Chinese law degree in 1997 and my physics degree. And then, like many of my peers in the physics major, I decided to come to the U.S. Sort of have a new view, right, of the law and really have a totally different exposure to the U.S. the legal system. So that's how I got into Notre Dame and then learning the JD degrees and then became a US patent lawyer in Fenwick West in the Silicon Valley. So now when I really thought about all of this, I always said, hey, somehow my career has something to do with the trade negotiation, have a lot of to do with the IP.
So when you look back at those trade negotiations, Japan opened up because, well, they call the black ships came from America and they forced Japan to open up. Do you think that China had that same type of experience?
I think um, probably not so much. I think China actively opened up, especially when you're looking at like in 1990s. China really realized that the way to open up, the way we reform is very critical to our modernization. I think that's intentional choice. China followed that through all the way to join the WTO, right, which happened in the year 2000. So I think when China and the US had this trade negotiation back in 1990s, China wants to make sure we got this the most favored nation treatment um, instead of being reviewed by the U.S. Congress every year. So that's a very intentional choice. So in a way, like IP protection is was intentionally adopted by Chinese government to facilitate to build a foreign business friendly environment.
And when you look back to where China was back then before the transition and where China is today, when you talk about China being reviewed by Congress every year, do you think that China is better off, the same, or worse off
I think the answer is very
today?
obvious, right? Of course, it's way better, really, in terms of the kind of IP we have, the kind of the environment we have to protecting IP. I think China really, sometimes, to be honest, I even surprised what's happening here, even surprised ourselves, surprised myself. At the time we grew up, US is the place we all want to go, right? We know that have the most advanced almost everything, okay? And but now when we're looking at it, we have to be really proud for lots of things that China has created. I just spoke to a friend. He is a top leader in one of the top Chinese EV companies. So he even said that, oh, we're so proud for what we're building here. So which I agree. So lots of this really have a lot to do with all the improvement in IP environment.
No, there's no doubt that there was a tremendous improvement in the IP environment and also in the technology. What about the way that Chinese perceive that they're being treated by the US?
Well, that's you're probably correct that part. I mean, that's we are in a now we sort of in the darker part of the whole pathway, I would say. Right now, I think the perception here is that the some people in the US are really concerned about the competition that are coming from China. And the perception here is that some people in the US try everything they can to use the export control, use the sanctions, all kinds of ways to make sure China will never be able to catching up, will never be able to get the sort of the more advanced technologies from the US. So that's the perception.
So, as somebody that has got a foot in both countries, and it understands the culture and the history and the civilization of both countries, uh, what do you what do you think both countries can do to navigate this conflict better?
I think we have to go into each other's world. Our Chinese people have to be in the American world. Our American colleagues have to be really in the Chinese world. We have to get a sense, get a real experience how the other side is experiencing about the other side. Otherwise, we can easily blame what Americans are doing, and Americans always have a lot of reasons to blame what China is doing. I think that's the first thing. And then another thing is that I think we all have to be truly, really, up to something big. To me, I can see that China has so much to contribute to the whole world. Like America, in a way, has a contribute in oh my God, right? Contribute in a huge way, right, to the whole world for the past decades, for the last even 100 years. And now, given where China is, given the size we are, given the kind of resources, given the kind of advancement we have mastered, we have so much to contribute to the world, and there are so many like a global crisis waiting ahead. I think the two countries, from the government, from the industries, or general public, we have no reason to waste our energy, our life in those resentments, in those complaints, right, in those hostilities. I mean, we really have to really work together with everyone. And so we have to really, I would say, be acting much bigger way. Then we can stop those silly fights.
I want to invite you to talk a little bit more about the idea that you have to have each other in the other's world. In what concrete or tangible way can both countries do that, whether in the IP sphere or more broadly?
I think, well, I'm an IP lawyer, right? Also, I know something, outside IP as well. But talk about IP, I think both sides really should um, using all kinds of, especially policy dialogues. You mentioned that for years, I helped putting together this U.S.-China expert IP dialogue. We really have really grateful to uh, our professor Liu Chuntian of Fordham University, and we're really grateful for all the support from the U.S. Chamber for the last even 10 years. And we always remember what the Professor Liu has contributed. Now he passed away, but we really, really grateful, right, for his leadership. And in from 2013 all the way to like 2019, right before the COVID, both sides, we have 5 experts from China, 5 experts from the US, really delve into some very, very deeper part of the IP policies. And the outcome was really sent to the high level people on both sides for some, I don't know, for further work. We have to say, when we're looking at all the changes, results, outcomes, even the trade deals, right, between US and China, I'm pretty sure those policy dialogues had made some differences.
Now, you mentioned that you went to Notre Dame. Was there a thought, because a lot of Chinese people, in addition to the US, also went to the UK, they went to Germany, they went to even Japan, of going somewhere else than the US? And what is it about the US that drew you to it?
So as I said, yeah, actually in China, a lot of people here, fully sort of respect what U.S. or American people and American industries, American universities, even entertainment industry in the U.S. right has accomplished. Seriously, I think people have huge respect. I think that's still true right now. So there's really it's no brainer, right, for younger generation. In my time, for the current younger generation, it does not take too much thought for people to say, hey, let's go to the US and then to learn and then collaborate, to make more friends. Lots of our people, our friends, chose to stay in the US to build their families and live there, right? And so I think that's very clear choice.
And you mentioned that you worked in Silicon Valley. So you actually were in the US for a while. Was there a thought that you would continue to live in the US rather than go back to China?
In fact, the reason I chose the Silicon Valley was really out of situation. I want to stay in the U.S. right for the longer term. I was given an offer by another really major U.S. firm, actually for corporate associate, corporate law practice, but they would need me to go back to China almost like in a couple of years. I thought, well, it's a very good firm, but at that time, hey, I want to stay in the U.S. right, live longer. So that's why I said, well, I probably still go to Silicon Valley. Fenwick is a very nice firm. They don't impose such a kind of a conditions. Even though I fully understand that the other corporate firm has all the good intentions, right? But I still somehow want to retain the choice, the right to choose myself. But now when I think about it, hey, probably my heart is always with China anyway. There's really nothing uh, there's nothing regret about coming back to China, just shortly after my US law career. So anyway.
What's your reflection on the US as a place, the people, given the years that you had spent at that point in time? And if it's different now, feel free to talk about that too. But you've been in the US then for law school. You've been in the US for practice.
Mm.
What was your impression of the country, the people, law practice in the US?
Well, that's a very big question. Um, I wouldn't say my perception changed that much, okay, in a way that how it works. In it's, but I have a much deep appreciation that the kind of challenges, right, the American legal system has been encountering. Um, in a way, especially when I compare what's going on in China, what's going on in the US, or what's going on in other countries. In today's world, the legal system in different jurisdictions really have to deal with the unprecedented amount of challenges, legal challenges, right? The social changes. It's just not easy. I mean, all whoever has designed either common law or continental law system have probably did not foresee the kind of challenges we have in today's world. So um, now when you come to maybe the IP world, right? Right now, the big thing we're talking about in the US, I thought there's a bill. Some Congress people said, hey, we should make sure we have an injunction for the patent cases, right? The eBay test got to go away. Now, when we look into this, you can see that the people or the industry in the US, they have to balance a lot more things now than before. And the world has changed, right? In the past, the innovation policy seems to be seems to be seems to be something much a, a choice that are more easier to make. But now, because due to all this the economic changes, the huge changes in business model, and the court have different considerations, and now the Congress step in, they have a new look about what's really needed about innovation for the innovation, and the people have a much harder choice to make. I don't know whether they people can eventually find that kind of balance, but just because of the whole global environment, the kind of balances, the kind of forces are quite different, and I think it's just much harder for people to make that a kind of a right decision. So in a way, I guess that maybe the Congress has to really have to do much harder work to make the right necessary legislative changes. But again, I don't know whether that's possible at all. So lots of things that comes down to the original design.
So do you think that lawyers are able to help businesses effectively make that kind of decisions today? Or do you think that lawyers really need also to think about policy issues? And if so, how are they going to get equipped to learn about these policy issues and implement them in their legal advice?
I think absolutely, the lawyers have to expand our own dimension. Lots of good lawyers. Our foundation is that our good legal skills, right? Whether it's drafting or advocacy, and all of that is very, very critical in a way where like this craftsmanship, right? That's a very fundamental. That's how we gain the credibility. But now, at least for some of us, when the opportunity comes or when the huge, significant global challenges or industry challenges are lying ahead of us, we must be able to have some kind of a policy brain, policy brain to work with the industry, to work with the government, to really think through how we can really make that a hard, policy choices, hard legislations, and maybe adapt it to that or making the changes in the next few years. So we have to adapt much more quickly. We have to think much more creatively, and we must be able to exercise our leadership, right, to work with the different stakeholders and make sure people understand it. Okay, people have to accept it. People really have to align with the new law, the new policies. And I just can't imagine how can we accomplish that if we totally blinded or ignorant of policies.
In your earlier interview with Professor Yu Hansen, you talked about how even at Gen Law, you're integrating this policy uh, uh, thinking. And as the founder, you're actually mentoring your colleagues in being able to do this. Can you talk a bit more about what goes into these training sessions and how they have been so far?
I um I think what we actually try something new, okay, these days. We were able to pair with a very renowned professor whose expertise is on international relationships. Okay, he used to be Brookings senior fellow, so that's why he brought in a tremendous amount of expertise on international relationships and on geopolitics analysis. That gave us something which we never imagined before.
So he
We
talks
have
to
not.
your colleagues at the law firm.
Oh yes, our colleagues are our clients. Okay, he prepared debriefings. We organize roundtables, closed door roundtables to brief our clients about the like a situation in India, what's coming up in the U.S. Election, presidential election. Some of things have not been like directly applied to in our legal practice, but that's definitely give us a very different perspectives about our law practice. And to some extent that actually some of the things that have been really impressive to some of our clients because so many Chinese companies they decided they must go overseas. Some are very, very large companies and they need more guidance. What's going on, right? How to make the investment choices. Probably the number one consideration these days for the Chinese company to make overseas investments is the sort of the political environments in the new market.
So let's go back to your career journey because there's more to tease out from there. So you practice and then you go to Hong Kong.
Yes.
So what made you decide that it was time to leave the US and go to Hong Kong?
Well, that's the time that I have done like 2 years of like a patent prosecution. And the funny thing is that lots of our people, if not just me, that we feel like hey, the patent prosecution is quite a brain draining. And at a certain point, after we know how to do the patent prosecution, we'll want to experience something new. So that's a time that hey, I probably want to try something different. And then the opportunity opens up in Hong Kong. Baker McKenzie at that time had a very, very vibrant the IP, China IP practice. That's why I decided to move back. I don't want to be, no matter how great Silicon Valley is, and I just did not think of that. I just want to, drop in the patents, which is a very, very important skill, right? Back in the Silicon Valley. But now, if I think about it again, I say, well, um, I probably can relearn myself, right? Relearning some other type of practice into some other area of work, not just necessarily the patent prosecution. Then can stay in a Silicon Valley. But in any case, I made a choice, and then my wife supported me. We just decided to move back to Hong Kong. I was pretty happy after I landed that China IP job. I know that China IP law. Remember, I have a China IP law degree, so it's pretty easy for me for the transition, jumping up and down, go with the police for rate actions. And then the next day, I can do patent litigation work in China. And then the next week, I advise my clients on standard essential patent licensing back that time, okay, like 2004. So I was quite a pioneer in ACP work in a way. But if I did not go back to Hong Kong doing the China IP practice, I would not be able to have this kind of exposure in the US practice.
What would you say are some of the differences in the culture of legal practice in Hong Kong and China compared to the US?
Um, I think the Hong Kong practice I had, right, is mostly like China IP practice. We were lucky, I was lucky in the Baker McKenzie, the international law firm. So we got a very good training and we got lots of mentoring by our partners. But also we give a lot of freedom, in a way, that was the time that and we have to be able to make a lot of decisions. We have to be creative on the ground. We got a lot of exposures as a third year, fourth year associate. I was able to get a lot of direct client access. So it's very, very different. And when I was in the Silicon Valley, keep in mind, I only spent like less than 3 years, about 2 years in there. So it's more like a junior associate life. But one thing that really impressed me is still actually give me a suggestion how I should train my associates is that they have this very, very regular training sessions. I remember I always go into thinking to those like a weekly lunch session by the litigation department of Fenwick West, right? Listening to all those trainings. That's really making me somehow, right, planting into my genes that what we should do, how should we train and nurture the people. So all of that, probably coming from the Silicon Valley law firm time.
When you look at litigation in the US, people do forum shopping all the time, whether it's Southern District of New York or Northern District of California. In China, I know you had talked about how it's much more uniform, but at the same time, there are different courts in China that have now become expert courts in IP, whether in Guangzhou or in Shenzhen or in Shanghai and Beijing. Where would you advise or how would you advise your clients in deciding where to bring an action or where to defend an action?
If I assume you're talking about American client, right, or multinational clients, or where they should go if they get a choice.
Does it make a difference?
It does. Hey, it's really part of like humanity, or if you are a foreigner, if a stranger to a location, and then you are fighting on someone's home court, you definitely got some disadvantage, right? It's always smart thing to think through, where you can minimize those unnecessary disadvantages. So right now, of course, in China, if you're looking at this IP litigations, you want to go to the court where the judges are more experienced. You want to go to the court. If you're deep in a plaintiff, you want to go to court where the cases move much faster. Okay, so that's why in recent years we go to courts in Nanjing, we go to courts in Ningbo, we even go to courts in Chengdu. That's the western part of China, and that's the judges are really professional. They are out to prove they're very professional. We just got a very big victory for FMC, which is your home state, from Pennsylvania. We won a big chemical patent case against fairly large local companies, and then the judge grants five times punitive damages in a process patent. So things could be done. Okay, things could be done. And at the same time, if you're defendants and my clients for the standard essential patent cases are brought into the home court of the plaintiff, right? FRAND rate setting or even anti-suit injunction. So some of the decisions are definitely controversial. And then we can even imagine how that was made. Of course, eventually the outcome wasn't not bad at all. So when we are in those situations, we just have to really fight very, very hard and then build a case for potential appeals. And you just have to trust that one day things will got to be corrected. I remember one of the standard essential patent cases where we got anti-suit injunction. We were not very happy about it, and then we definitely think there's some protectionism. Funny thing is, about a year and a half later, right, when the case I think after the case was closed, I have this opportunity to have a conversation with the judge who issued that decision. That's in the conference context. Right? We sat down with the table, and it's very interesting. The judge was also complaining, how that decision makes his life terrible. Apparently, it's not easy for him as well. Okay, he was looked at from all angles by the appellate court, by all the professors, and so he totally now understands all the pressure, all the attention. So it's quite interesting to see how judges are dealing with those difficult cases. That's why I often tell my clients, I said, hey, don't overestimate the so-called local protectionism, or even worse kind of forces. I think it's not that easy for the other side to mobilize that kind of political resources to get an unfair advantage. It's not that easy at all, especially in today's environment. The governments really spend a huge amount of enforcement effort to make sure everybody, including the judges, to do a fair job. So it's sort of slowing down some of the cases, but we can definitely see that the judges are really trying hard to do professional work, and that's really requires us to build on our experience in litigating nationally to give the clients the best advice where they should go.
So let me pick up on something that you said about the speed at which courts function in places like Nanjing. What is it that gives these courts the advantage in being able to process cases faster?
Well, mostly because of caseload. Okay, the caseload. And one of things that some of the things that the court right now we sort of go less often is like Beijing IP court. With all the due respect, we really respect the Beijing IP court, but somehow they, because of the way the system is, they have to deal with a lot of review of trademark cases, like TTAP kind of review of TTAP appeals, using the U.S. terms. Right? It's a huge amount of cases, and I would not. If I were a judge, I would not want to be a judge in that court, given that kind of a caseload. So the judges are fully competent in dealing with any kind of complex cases, but just way too much. Just way too much. Mm.
And if you were bringing a biotech case versus a FCP case, would that influence which court you brought your case in?
You mean the kind of expertise? You mean dealing with the different
The
expertise, right?
industry, yes.
Yeah, industry. Um, to some extent, right now, a lot of the SCP cases are being dealt with in the Shenzhen court, are being dealt with in Nanjing. Some of those cases go to Shanghai. Of course, some cases are in Beijing as well. So it's about like 5, 6 courts in China. They are quite busy with this kind of we call quote unquote, whether the biotech or SCP or wireless or semiconductor cases, the more complex cases. So 5, 6 course you're gonna go to.
So you you have a successful practice, Baker McKenzie, and you were another firm, Anjie, and then you decided, I think it was around 2020, around the time of the pandemic, to start a
Yeah.
new firm.
Mm.
And decided to call it Gen Law. So talk about what went into your mind when you said it's time to do this. It's a big risk. You decided to do it, and what kind of firm did you want to create?
Sometimes when I look back, setting up the law firm, I have to say sometimes I feel like, hey, I should not work so hard. And building a law firm is hard. Okay, if I had known such a hard work, I probably would have thought differently, right? Especially if I had known that COVID would have taken 3 years. A little bit of joking aside, of course, I'm very proud of what I have created. Not just I, and my fellow partners, and I was very lucky. The people in my team, they really trust me, they follow me, and they trust the vision. I think the vision is to really build a heavyweight law firm that we really use a very high level professional service to serve those companies who are really committed to, we call it high quality development. Okay. And the team are really nurturing each other. We somehow were really inspired by the kind of, we call excellent American law firm model. And the team are really working cohesively, right? Partners are really related to each other, are someone really close. So we want to build something like at that international level. That's always my intention. Now, at a previous firm, I spent a lot of efforts and I contributed to a lot. I'm also very solid. But sometimes I was joking, hey, maybe it's the mentality of this Chinese man thing. Okay. Now our Chinese men, right, want to have our own, always want to have our own turf. Somehow something we feel some our own house, right? Our Chinese people love to own our own house, something of our own. Um, so that's why we've always thought about that, thinking about it, design it. Also, was very fortunate, got some good help and good guidance from people who are really experienced in the legal industry in China. So that's why we really want to give it a try. And plus, we have some sort of substantial reasons. For example, my older firm, needs to expand dramatically. Around the same time, I was debating whether I should have my own firm. So if I didn't do that, I didn't come out, maybe that means I have to stuck in my old firm for much longer. So in a way, I was forced to.
So you had to make a pitch both to your existing clients as well as to new clients that Gen Law is the place to be, not Baker McKenzie, not Allen and Overy, not Cheng Si, not Fanta. So you almost had to create a niche, not to be different from the Chinese firms, but also to be different from the foreign firms. How did you do that?
How did I do that? Okay, I think the way we compete, first of all, is that we really build a true team, a true partnership. This might sound like something very straightforward or obviously, but at least in China, and most of the law firms are really composed of the different partner teams, and the teams are relatively sort of close and tight and relatively small. But I was able to put together a very large team by spending about how many years, from 2011 all the way to 2020, right? We were able to have 60 people together, really just doing most of just IP work, IP litigation, and all the partners working as, you know, as one team. So we can put together all the resources and from the entire team. That allows us to really do some very, very big fight. So sometimes our clients, they say, oh, wow, you can, they thought we are a smaller firm, but I said, hey, we actually, if you're looking at the size of our team, we are no smaller than any other big firms anywhere, right, in China, whether it's an international firm or other, leading firms. That's how we really compete. We really have the one team. I can have multiple partners working on the same case, putting together the best resources. So that's one. The second thing is the way we build it. That's probably more of our secret. One thing that we were able to do is that we benefit a lot from coaching and the transformative education. And we somehow, we believe when a group of people working together, it's very important that we have to communicate effectively. We got to really honor our word, keep our word. We got to be really accountable for what we are accomplishing. To accomplish all of that, we got to find ways to be really authentic about the kind of barriers, the kind of complaints we have about each other, the kind of reasons, excuses that may stop us from doing what we promised to our clients. When we are able to disappear those constraints, the kind of a power, the kind of a self-expression we can be as a lawyer are quite different. That's why our clients love us. Our clients really love our team.
And it sounds like your team loves each other.
Well, you experienced some of that, right? you met some of them before.
Yes,
You met many of them, right? Over the years.
very, very happy to meet them. But
Yeah.
when you think about attracting new talent to join your firm, what sort of people are you looking for?
A few things, and some are really the basic, right? They gotta be really solid on the education. They are really committed to excellence, and that's I think everybody looking at the same thing. And we don't really look for, we don't have any other like a different criteria. But maybe one thing we're hoping for, people may have is that they are willing to be coachable. They're willing to be coachable. They're willing to not to be coachable by me, okay? They're being coachable to each other. In our industry, for the lawyers, right? Our lawyers, especially good lawyers, always have a big ego. The lawyers who have the potential to be good lawyers, they have a big ego too. So that thing works in a way, right? You are confident, but sometimes at certain points, it gotta come back to bite us, to stop us from growing. So if people are willing to be coachable, which means that they are willing to listen to good advice and then take it on, try it on, and those people have a much better chance to keep growing in the face of all these challenges, right? Down the road.
How do you tell without working with them?
Nobody can tell. We are humans, right? You just don't know. Okay. But we lay out those are expectations. Okay. And we're also being authentic. That we tell people that, hey, sometimes even myself, I'm not that coachable. I'm stuck in my own small world as well, whether it's good time or bad times. But we want you to know that it is something we hope you could have, and then we think it's a good thing for all of us. Okay, and also we got to train people. I just worked with my colleague. We started this dialogue, how we can be a better mentor mentee or 师傅徒弟. In our Chinese term, right? Like 师傅, like a kung fu panda, right? You got to be the 师傅 and the apprentice. And I mean, common law has a tradition, good tradition as well. You have this master or pupilage in the common law system. I
And
think
so you
that's
have
that.
this system at the firm, mentor and a mentee.
Yes. Okay. We're also building that. Okay. We actually had some failures as well. We had some mentor mentorship, structure, then sort of breaking down. And nobody really follow it. When we get busy, you forget about it. Okay. But now I'm reviving that kind of a conversation. I'm not too sure whether we really need a very formal structure, but I'm actually counting on this is very quintessential tradition of law firms are actually very, very crucial to resolve all the challenges in the legal industry these days, including those challenges imposed by AIs and the kind of a human relationship, the kind of commitments between the senior people to the junior people, the kind of listening the junior people may have for the senior people, I think are very, very crucial for the law firm, for people in the law firm to grow healthily.
How do you do that in a culture where it's traditionally vertical in hierarchy, senior people speak, junior people listen? How do you encourage the conversation and the reverse without upsetting that type of culture?
I think be authentic and then really being authentic. That's starting from myself too, right? And it's not easy, as you said. When I was starting that conversation with my whole firm, we have done this for 2 months now. Okay, um, I had this. I call everybody in the conference room. Like Friday lunchtime, and lots of people come. Okay, and we're not big firm. We have 100 people. 60, 70 fee earners, right? About 30 people in the rooms, maybe 30, 40 in the rooms. About another 10 something in the online. I was looking at it. I said, hey, good. You're all interested in this conversation, mentor mentorship. But I can also tell you, we're gonna have a lot of challenges. The reason is some of maybe half the partners are not in this conversation. Those mentors, those master chiefs are not here. And then we got all these apprentices are here. It's good you are here, but we also need more of our partners to be in the part to be in this part of a conversation. If they are not a good shifu, if not a good master, whatever training I have with you will not make too much difference. So it's starting from that.
So you have firms, offices in Beijing, Shanghai,
Shanghai,
Shenzhen.
Shenzhen, Chengdu, and
Yes.
we also started an office in Irvine, a little office in Irvine.
Is
Southern
your plan
California.
is your plan to be a multinational practice in terms of your presence?
Well, I might say that could be a 20 or 30 years vision. Okay, I'm a 50 years old right now. So yes, if by the time I'm 80 years old, we have a multinational practice, would be great. But right now, we don't want to make that too big. And the reason is that we're definitely interested helping some of the local companies to find the best team or work with our team to deal with some of the tough litigation in the US, right? Everybody complaining the litigation in the US, patent litigation in the US are very expensive. And now we're experimenting something. Our team is really, really solid. We're working with some teams in the US on some of the US patent litigation and the IPR cases, right? And of course, our US colleagues are taking the lead, doing the key work. But our team can do very, very solid patent analysis and can really do some of the very solid drafting in a way that we can really help our clients. So that's some other, people already tried this out. But we think given the amount of the US litigations, Chinese companies being involved, and there's a market there.
Do you want to be a full service firm?
Um, I don't know how full we're talking about, but we already have IP and commercial litigation and arbitration. We have a very, very good arbitration team. And then we have outstanding corporate partners. And it's not that big yet, the non-IP practice. I mean, it's better corporate practice. So we listen to the market, we listen to our clients' needs. And also we are very open for for the very good partners in the market joining us. So at least we're not closing these opportunities. We're not saying, hey, we only do IP. We don't want anything else. No, we don't do
Do
that.
you think your corporate partners and your arbitration partners or associates worry that they are treated as second class because you are inherently a IP practice?
They're not worried about it being a second class, but they do have a concern, like have maybe people only know GN law firm. We call ourselves GEN, right? GN law firm only as an IP firm. So they somehow overshadowed. I said, I got it. I totally understand that concern. You know what? Let's add some more marketing expense just to promote our commercial litigation arbitration practice more. So, and one thing we're trying is that we say, hey, next time we hire IP partner, and we must hire another litigation partner to join us at the same time.
So your quota.
Yes.
So
That's what we're trying.
I want to ask you about the name of your firm, Jiren. What does that mean?
Jiren actually comes from a very famous ancient Chinese quote. That Chinese quote meaning that we take on the whole world as our own responsibility. Okay, that's really one of the very famous ancient Chinese philosophers' view, and it's really transcendent over thousands of years in China. That shows that China's worldview, right? Every person got to be responsible for how the world works. And so we run into this phrase, this sentence. At the time, we're searching for the name, and we immediately were caught by that. They say,
That's
hey,
an ambitious
Jiren.
name for a 100-person practice. You're taking
Well,
on the world.
we're talking about contextual, right? We may never be able to accomplish that. But you know what? This is actually something, whether you call yourself a Jiren or not, you could have taken that on.
So Gen, what does Gen mean?
GN, GN sounds also like a Jiren, right? And then we just want to come up a name which is more worldly rather than just too much like a pinyin. So when we come up, we have different choices, and we try this, try that, and we just come into this GN,
Did you use
and
a
then
brand expert?
We got a help from a brand expert. We actually gave this our final term was like a GENREN. It's very interesting, somehow like a GENREN. So I was scratching my head. What can we do? that I went to one of my best friends. He actually a top CEO in a branding company. He listened to it even without hesitation. He said, "Why don't you just call yourself GN? Get rid of that REN. GN also sounds like a GN." And also GN, right? You mean, generative, generation, generate, right? It's quite a good meaning for like a create. We say, yes, that's it.
So in the US, firms you join, Fenwick West, Bacon McKenzie, are typically named after their founders. Your
Mm.
name is not in the name of the firm. Why was that a deliberate decision to keep your name
Oh,
out of it?
no, no, that's not the tradition. Chinese law firm, most of the Chinese, very few Chinese law firm using the sort of the partner's name as a name, right? It's never the tradition. That's probably the continental system. I don't know. I think Chinese law firm, we always pick a very nice name for ourselves. Okay, very nice name for ourselves. But we realize that also causes trouble because it's so hard for firms to merge together. The first thing you think about when you're trying to merge is that whose name gonna be kept, or how you gonna merge the two names together. That's
But
our problem.
so I'm glad you talked about
Mm,
that. Uh,
mm,
if a firm approaches you to say, we want to merge with you,
mm.
what do you tell them?
Oh, I definitely say I'm very open. It's funny you say this. Actually, even yesterday, um, a very large firm, I sent in a message to one of my other partners, say, "Hey, why don't we just merge together?" So it's for the last few years, this kind of conversation is always there. And
You're okay with
somehow,
that?
yeah. No, we are
Well,
very, very open because, like you said, right? You already said this. Hey, as a 100 lawyer firm, how could you say you want to be responsible for the whole world, right? Which I was, I was thinking about it. Hey, if I'm serious, if I'm genuinely interested, doing something at a much higher level, right, for our clients, for much bigger clients, for more important clients, we really need more, brighter, star players, to be
well, how
honest.
would you
And
what makes Gen Law special? If, say, a firm that is as big as Baker McKenzie or Fangda or King and Wood absorbs Gen Law.
well, I I don't know all the answers, but one thing I know is that we need to get a coaching. We need to get the best people to help us, right? People have the wisdom, and then we got to, when we have to keep design, have to keep looking at our design, and to make sure we have the good context, the good system, and the good conversation. One thing I know is that a context is decisive. Okay, if we want to be big, only for more money, I doubt we can will ever be able to accomplish what we truly want. Okay, we might have more money, but we may collapse in terms of culture. We wouldn't be able to go much further. But if we are truly stay with the kind of spirit like a GEN, right? Take on something bigger than ourselves as our own responsibility, and then build a system, build a foundation, build a kind of conversation, and being true to that, we may have a chance.
Let me ask you about partnerships.
Mm.
So you've got partnerships with uh, Notre Dame, where you graduated, Fordham Law School, which I think is where you and I met, and Penn State Dickinson Law, perhaps most recently. Can you talk about your partnerships with each of these institutions?
Actually, I actually really follow my friends. Okay, I really follow my friendship. The reason of course Notre Dame, right? That's where I got educated. I'm always forever grateful to the kind of generosity I had from Notre Dame. So I'm willing to do anything for Notre Dame. I was so happy we just have two students coming to Beijing to do interns with us. This is our fourth time or fifth time to do this for Notre Dame Law School. But we continue revive this after COVID, and we're hoping that we can do more. So for them, I followed Mark Cohen, and when Mark was in GW. I was in GW as well, the partnership there. Now now I follow you. You're now the Dickinson, and then I want to work with my friends, the people I know of, people I trust, and the people are really up to the same thing. And that's how we build it. That's called, the partnership. To do big things, we need at least need a critical mass of the good people.
And I should mention to our viewers that Jing serves on the advisory board of our IP and innovation initiative as well, and has been a big supporter and enabler of the law school's efforts in being relevant in bringing people together, bringing views together, as he had said in the beginning, that two worlds of China and the US and other places, perhaps more important today than ever before. So let's move to the last part of our conversation, where you give advice on how you manage your life, how you do work-life balance, how you have fun. Talk about, first of all, work-life balance. How do you manage that?
Well, actually, I understand that, right? But sometimes I say something dramatic. I said we only have one life. There's really no separation, like a work the life, right? Work is also part of the life. Part of the in the past 20 years, I have nearly like 24 years of a sort of quote unquote professional life. The one thing I'm always trying to train myself, I'm still training on that, is about like honor my word, keep my word. If I give my word to my work, I really put all my attention to this, accomplish what I'm going to accomplish. When I put my time for my sort of a quote unquote life or personal life, I really been in that part of the life. So I don't separate that too much. I don't really separate that too much. And one thing that, of course, I still have challenge that in terms of like holidays. Maybe because of someone like growing up in China, when I grew up, right, we don't have this quote unquote concept like those kind of family holidays. And of course, we just take the long sort of summer holidays, but we don't intentionally. So I still have not really have this very long holiday
You
these
don't
days.
travel during Golden Week?
We do. Of course I did. Of course I did. Of course I did. But what I meant is that how to really design a very good holidays, right, for myself. But generally speaking, for myself, I these days, and I have a wife, I have two kids, 17 years old, 19 years old, and I have a very high quality of quality of life for my with my family. And these days, this year, I visit my parents a lot more often in my hometown. People might feel like it's like a crazy, have a one stop like in Shenzhen, another stop in Shanghai, and then have stop in my hometown with my parents, and then came back to Beijing, spend time with my family. The next day, doing the work. So it's all like a really packed uh, these days for me.
And what does retirement look like for you? Or is that something that you never want to think about?
Well, I make this a dramatic, quite a bold and outrageous, probably even crazy declaration to my colleagues. I said, "Hey, I'm not going to retire until like 90 years old." Okay. I, I
So
did
you're
not
only
mean,
halfway there.
yeah. Um, I did not mean that I'm gonna like do those daily legal practice, right? When I'm like 80, 70 or 90 years old. But I really want to be really useful. So I really care about my everything, my well-being, mentally, physically, and train myself and being really useful for the kind of different ways. I think that's kind of attitude I have. And when I grow older, if I don't want to do the hard, heavy lifting, but I will make sure I can be very useful, maybe as a coach, professional or personal, and then writing or doing something very useful.
And what would you want to be remembered for after you retire?
Um, I want to be remembered for as um, someone can always make a difference. Anywhere I go, I can make a difference.
So, last question. When you look back at uh, that young man who decided years ago to leave China to go to Notre Dame and practice, your remarkable life since then, what advice would you give to that young man?
The advice, that's a very good question. Okay. If I just met, right, the person um 30 years ago, um, what advice I would give? I probably will say, hey, being courageous, be more courageous. Instead of thinking of um like just survive. That's how I would say. Okay. There's lots of opportunities out there, and it's up to us just being courageous, willing to fail, and go grab them. Even we fail, and hey, come back and try again. Seriously.
And I think anybody looking at the many courageous decisions you've made since has would have no doubt that you've been a good person to follow that advice. And with that, I want to thank you, Jing, for joining us on this episode of Profiles in Leadership. And thank you for what you do both uh, in China, but also in helping to bring both the US and China closer together.
Well, thank you, Daryl. Thank you for not only just for inviting me, right, but also for your generous like listening for all kinds of us, the people in the community, and then give us this opportunity and allow us to share whatever we have to the community. Really appreciate it.
Thank you.